Capricorn, before we go any further, let me say this clearly. Congratulations. Because 2026 is not just another year for you. It's the first time in 14 years that the confusion finally ends. For more than a decade, you've carried people, partnerships, responsibilities that were never meant to be yours alone. Not because you were weak, but because you were capable. In 2026, something shifts, the fog lifts, and for the first time in a long time, you don't guess who's real anymore. You see, if this resonates, type "I choose clarity" in the comments, because what you're about to hear next explains why these 14 years happened and what kind of power you're stepping into now. Capricorn, stay with me for a moment. I want you to imagine this not as a forecast, not as astrology, but as a conversation between two people who have both lived long enough to know how heavy responsibility can feel when no one sees it resting on your shoulders. For 14 years, you were never weak, not once. You were the one who held things together when they were already falling apart. The one who stepped in quietly when chaos needed structure. The one who stayed grounded so others could float, explore, drift, or disappear. And you did it without complaint, because that is who you are. You don't trust words easily. You watch patterns. You notice who shows up again and again. You believe consistency tells the truth long before promises ever do. But life placed you in situations where your strength became a silent invitation for others to lean too hard. Some spoke beautifully but moved very little. Some relied on duty instead of mutual respect. Some stayed not because the connection was alive, but because history felt safer than change. And maybe there were nights when you asked yourself why it always felt like you were carrying more. Why being reliable slowly turned into being responsible for things that were never yours to fix. Here's what I want you to hear clearly, not as judgment, not as regret. You didn't fail at relationships. You simply stayed loyal longer than the truth required. There's a difference. And in 2026, that difference becomes impossible to ignore. Something inside you settles, not hardens. Settles. You no longer need to explain why something feels off. You don't talk yourself out of your own awareness. You don't translate other people's behavior into excuses that make it easier to stay. You just see. And there is relief in that. A deep one. Because clarity doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives like a quiet knowing that no longer argues with itself. You begin to understand that your strength was never meant to be a permanent shelter for others. It was meant to be shared with those capable of standing beside you. Not behind you, not on top of you, beside you. And as this awareness settles in, you may notice something else, a softness returning. Not because you're letting your guard down, but because you're no longer guarding against confusion. There is space now, space to breathe, space to choose, space to feel grounded without being burdened. And you don't have to rush this moment. You've earned the pause, let it land. Because what you're stepping into next isn't about loss, it's about alignment. And once alignment begins, everything that follows moves with a different kind of weight, a truer one. Stay here with me. There's more clarity waiting to take shape. All right? Stay right here with me. Don't rush this. Capricorn, there's a quiet moment that arrives in 2026, and it doesn't announce itself with noise. It doesn't demand attention. It simply settles into your body like a deep exhale you didn't realize you were holding. You wake up one day and something is different. Not dramatic, not emotional, just clear. For the first time in a long time, you don't have to argue with yourself about why something feels wrong. You don't rehearse explanations in your head. You don't minimize your instincts just to keep the peace. You notice the gap between what people say and what they actually do. And that gap is no longer confusing. It's obvious. There's no gray area pulling at you anymore. No fog blurring the edges. No silent hope that maybe if you wait a little longer, they'll finally show up differently. That hope dissolves, not painfully, naturally. And what replaces it is something steadier, awareness. You begin to see patterns with calm eyes. Who reaches out only when they need something? Who goes quiet when you are the one asking? Who stands close when there is nothing to gain except your presence? This isn't about judgment, it's about recognition. And recognition brings peace, because when you see people clearly, you stop taking their behavior personally. You stop wondering what you could have done differently. You stop carrying responsibility that was never yours to hold. There's a moment where you realize you were never asking for too much. You were simply asking the wrong people. Let that sink in. You didn't imagine the imbalance. You didn't overthink it. You weren't too serious or too demanding or too guarded. You were just awake in rooms where others preferred to sleep. And now, your awareness no longer isolates you. It protects you. You move through conversations differently, quieter, more grounded. You listen without absorbing. You observe without attaching. You respond instead of reacting. There's no need to confront anyone. No need to explain your distance. No need to announce your boundaries. They become felt. And something interesting happens here. As your inner world clears, your energy shifts. People sense it. Some step closer with honesty. Others drift away without conflict. And you let them. Because clarity has taught you something vital. Not everyone who walks with you is meant to walk with you forever. And not everyone who leaves was ever meant to stay. There is maturity in that understanding, a quiet dignity. You begin to trust yourself again, not because everything is perfect, but because you know you can see the truth when it appears. And that trust is worth more than certainty. You feel lighter, not because life is easier, but because you're no longer carrying illusions. You are present now, rooted, steady. And as this steadiness becomes familiar, something deeper starts to form beneath it. A sense of choice. Choice about who gets access to you. Choice about where your effort flows. Choice about the kind of connections you are willing to stand inside of. Nothing is forced. Nothing is rushed. You are simply moving with your eyes open. And in that openness, a different kind of alignment begins to take shape. One that doesn't require sacrifice to sustain. One that doesn't demand explanation. One that meets you where you stand. Stay with me. Because once clarity settles, the way you carry your power begins to change. I want you to stay close to this moment, Capricorn. Let it slow down. Let it breathe. There is a truth that rises in 2026, and it does not come to punish you. It comes to release you. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, not sharp, just heavy in the chest, like recognizing something you have always known but never said out loud. You begin to see it clearly. You didn't fail in love. You didn't fail in loyalty. You didn't fail in commitment. You stayed longer than you should have, not because you were afraid to leave, but because you believed in responsibility. Because when you commit, you don't do it halfway. For years, you carried more than your share. You carried financial weight without asking to be thanked. You carried emotional stability when others unraveled. You carried direction when no one else knew where they were going. Sometimes you even carried someone else's future on your back, telling yourself that this is what strength looks like. And maybe no one ever told you to stop, because things worked, because you made them work. But deep inside, there was a quiet exhaustion. Not dramatic, just persistent. The kind that settles into the bones. In 2026, that exhaustion finally speaks. Not in anger, in honesty. You realize something that changes everything. Your ability to carry was mistaken for obligation. Your competence was confused with responsibility. And your loyalty was treated like a resource instead of a gift. Let that land. You were not needed, you were relied upon. There is a difference. And when you see that difference, something inside you softens. Not toward others, toward yourself. You stop asking why you always seem to give more. You stop questioning whether you expected too much. You understand now. You were strong enough to hold things together. And that made it easy for others to let go. But strength was never meant to be your prison. In 2026, you begin to loosen your grip. Not suddenly, not dramatically, gently. You no longer jump in to fix. You pause, you breathe, you wait to see who steps forward. And when no one does, you don't step in automatically. That is the moment of change. You are not abandoning anyone. You are returning responsibility to where it belongs. There is relief in that. A quiet relief. The kind that feels like setting down a heavy bag you forgot you were carrying. You begin to notice how much energy returns to you when you stop carrying what was never yours. Your body relaxes, your mind clears, your decisions feel steadier. You realize you don't have to prove your value by holding everything together. Your value has never been in how much you can endure. It has always been in who you are when you stand in your own balance. And as you release these old weights, space opens. Not empty space, honest space. Space where support can finally meet you. Space where effort can be shared. Space where connection does not feel like labor. You are not becoming colder. You are becoming lighter. And lightness changes how you move. It changes what you allow. It changes what you attract. You don't rush this realization. You let it unfold at its own pace. Because this understanding is not meant to shock you. It is meant to steady you. And as you stand here, more grounded than before, you may sense something else shifting around you. Connections adjusting, dynamics realigning. Nothing forced, nothing dramatic, just truth finding its natural place. Stay with that feeling, because when old burdens fall away, what remains has room to reveal itself. Stay with me, Capricorn. Let the pace remain slow. There is no need to hurry this part, because what unfolds here is not loud. It does not arrive with arguments or slammed doors or dramatic endings that demand witnesses. It happens quietly. In 2026, some connections simply loosen their grip, not because you push them away, not because anyone failed. They fall away because the weight holding them together is no longer there. You may notice conversations becoming shorter, effort no longer meeting effort. Silence is stretching where understanding used to live. And strangely, there is no urge inside you to fix it. That is how you know something has changed. For years, you were the one who bridged the distance, who filled the gaps, who adjusted, explained, waited, carried. Now, you pause, and in that pause, what has been sustained by obligation alone begins to dissolve. Not painfully, naturally. There are no confrontations, no accusations, no need to make a case for why something no longer fits. You simply stop holding it together. And when you stop, some connections reveal their truth. If balance was never there, nothing remains to stand on. This can feel unsettling at first, not because you are losing people, but because you are witnessing reality without distortion. And reality, when seen clearly, does not require resistance. You may feel moments of quiet grief, not for the people themselves, but for the effort you invested hoping something would eventually change. Allow that feeling. It deserves space. But notice something else beneath it. Relief. A gentle relief that moves through your body when you realize you no longer have to carry the relationship forward alone. You are not being abandoned. You are being unburdened. This is important because, Capricorn, you do not lose value when something ends. You regain energy. Energy that was tied up, maintaining connections that had already expired. Energy that was spent proving loyalty instead of receiving reciprocity. As these dynamics fall away, you begin to feel lighter in places you forgot were tense. Your shoulders soften, your breathing deepens, your thoughts become quieter. You stop replaying interactions, stop questioning what you could have done differently, stop wondering how to keep everyone together. There is nothing left to hold, and that realization is not empty, it is spacious. Space allows honesty to enter. Space allows alignment to form. Space allows something sturdier to eventually take shape. You begin to understand that endings do not always mean failure. Sometimes they mean completion. A cycle doing exactly what it was meant to do. You grew, they grew, and the path no longer runs side by side. There is no blame in that. You do not announce your freedom. You do not explain it. You live it, and others feel it. Some will respect your steadiness. Some will fade quietly. Both outcomes are correct. Because you are no longer available for relationships built on imbalance. This is not hardness, this is maturity. And maturity knows that what is meant to stay does not require force. As these connections settle into their natural place, you may notice a calm returning, a calm that feels earned. You are not closing your heart, you are clearing the ground. And when the ground is clear, something true can finally grow there. Let that thought rest with you. Because once old ties release their hold, a different kind of presence begins to form around you. One that does not drain, one that does not demand, one that meets you exactly where you stand. Stay right here, Capricorn. Let the quiet continue. There is a shift that happens in 2026 that others may not notice at first, but you will feel it immediately. It shows up in your posture, in the way you pause before responding, in the way silence no longer makes you uncomfortable. You begin to speak less. Not because you have less to say, but because you no longer feel the need to explain yourself into being accepted. Your words carry more weight now, because they are no longer trying to convince. They are simply stating truth, and truth does not argue. You stop defending your choices. You stop justifying your boundaries. You stop entering conversations where respect has to be negotiated. There is a calm authority in this. not loud, not rigid, steady. You notice how different it feels to let people misunderstand you without rushing to correct them, to allow assumptions to exist without bending yourself to erase them. This is not indifference, this is discernment. You are no longer available for emotional bargaining. You are no longer investing energy trying to be seen correctly by those who are not looking clearly. Something inside you has matured. You begin choosing connections the way you choose foundations, carefully, deliberately. Not from sympathy, not from obligation, but from mutual strength. You feel the difference in your body when you are with someone who meets you where you stand. There is no tightening, no quiet resentment, no invisible labor happening in the background, just presence. And presence is powerful. You stop rescuing conversations, stop smoothing discomfort, stop filling silence to make others feel at ease. You allow space. And in that space, people reveal who they are without saying a word. Some rise to meet you, others realize they cannot. You do not chase either outcome. You understand now that respect is not something you earn by giving more. It is something that appears when balance exists. You have learned this the long way, through effort, through endurance, through years of holding yourself together while holding others up. That chapter has shaped you, but it does not define what comes next. In 2026, your energy becomes quieter and more exact. You notice how people respond when you stop over-explaining, when you say no without apology, when you step back and let others carry their own weight. There is no guilt in this anymore, because you understand something deeply human now. Connection without respect is not intimacy. It is imbalance, and you have outgrown imbalance. You are not asking to be understood by everyone. You are asking to be respected by the right ones. That distinction changes everything. You become selective without being cold, firm without being harsh, open without being exposed. There is strength in that combination. You no longer mistake patience for love, or endurance for loyalty, or silence for peace. You know what alignment feels like now. It feels steady. It feels reciprocal. It feels clean. And the people who belong in your life will recognize this version of you immediately. They will not ask you to shrink. They will not test your limits. They will not require proof of your worth. They will simply meet you. Others may drift, and that is not loss. That is clarity continuing its work. You do not announce this new authority. You embody it. And embodiment has a way of reshaping the room without a single word spoken. As you settle into this steadiness, you may feel a quiet confidence returning, not the kind that pushes forward, the kind that stands still and knows its ground. Let yourself rest there for a moment, because when respect becomes the baseline, something else begins to take form around you, something built not on effort, but on alignment. And that alignment has a way of drawing the right people closer without you ever reaching for them. Stay with me for a moment, Capricorn. Let this part arrive gently. Because what begins to form around you in 2026 is not loud and it is not crowded. It does not come with a flood of new faces or endless invitations or people asking for your time. It comes quietly, selectively. You start to notice that the room feels different, smaller but steadier, fewer voices, less noise, more presence. For a long time, you were used to being the strongest one in the space, the anchor, the organizer, the one everyone leaned on when things felt uncertain. You carried the weight so naturally that no one thought to ask what it cost you. In 2026, that dynamic changes, not because you demand support, but because you no longer stand in places where support is absent. The people who begin to find their way to you now do not arrive with expectations. They arrive with capacity. They know how to stand on their own. They know how to listen. They know how to contribute without being asked. There is a quiet relief in this. You feel it the first time someone meets you halfway without you explaining what halfway looks like. You feel it when effort is returned naturally, when collaboration feels mutual, when presence does not feel like pressure. These connections do not rush intimacy. They build trust through consistency. That matters to you, because you have learned that loyalty without balance eventually becomes a burden. In this new circle, you do not have to perform strength. You do not have to manage the energy of the room. You do not have to be the emotional foundation holding everything together. You are allowed to lean back, and that may feel unfamiliar at first. You may catch yourself waiting for the moment when you need to step in, when something needs fixing, when someone needs saving, but the moment never comes, because these people are capable. They stand beside you, not behind you, not beneath you, beside you. There is dignity in that alignment. You begin to realize that community does not have to be exhausting. It does not have to demand constant vigilance. It does not have to rely on your endurance. True connection feels supportive even in silence. You can sit in the same space without filling it. You can speak without carrying the conversation alone. There is room for pause, for breath, for authenticity. And something soft happens inside you when you realize you are not being held together by duty anymore. You are being met by choice. Choice changes everything. These new alliances are not dramatic. They do not announce themselves as important. They simply feel right, grounded, respectful, stable. You recognize them by how calm your body feels when you are around them. No tension in the shoulders, no scanning for imbalance, no quiet calculation of how much you need to give to keep things steady. You are steady together. And that steadiness restores something in you that has been tired for a long time. You begin to trust again, not blindly, but wisely. You understand now that the right people do not require you to sacrifice yourself to belong. They see your strength and they honor it by bringing their own. This is not about shrinking your world. It is about refining it. Less effort, more truth, less obligation, more alignment. And as this new rhythm settles in, you may notice a sense of gratitude rising quietly. Not for the past struggles, but for the clarity that came from them. Because without carrying what you carried, you would not recognize how valuable balance truly is. You would not feel the difference between being needed and being supported. Let that awareness stay with you, because when the right people surround you, something else becomes possible. You begin to move through the world, not as the one who holds everything up, but as someone who is finally allowed to be held as well. And that changes the way you walk forward, calmer, more rooted, more open to what feels true. There is no rush here, just a quiet sense that you are no longer alone in the way you once were. And from this steadiness, something even more personal begins to shift into view. Stay with me, Capricorn. Let the night stay quiet around us. There is a subtle shift that happens in 2026, and it doesn't begin inside you. It begins in the way the world responds to the way you now carry yourself. People notice, even if they can't explain why. You walk into familiar spaces and something feels different, not colder, just more contained. You are not reaching as far anymore, not scanning the room, not adjusting your energy to match what others expect. You are simply present. And that presence has edges now, not sharp ones, clear ones. You speak when it matters, you pause when it doesn't. You don't rush to fill silence with reassurance or explanations. That alone changes everything. Some people feel it immediately. They sense that access to you is no longer automatic, that your attention is no longer something they can assume. You are not difficult, you are discerning. There is a difference. You are no longer trying to be understood by everyone. You have lived long enough to know that being understood is not the same as being respected, and respect is what you value now. In 2026, you stop measuring your worth by how well you are received. You stop performing competence so others feel secure. You let your work speak. You let your consistency speak. You let your boundaries speak. And when you do that, you become harder to read. Not because you are hiding, but because you are no longer explaining yourself to people who have not earned that access. Some will call this distance. Some will call it seriousness. Some may even say, you have changed. They're right. But what they may not realize is that you have always been this person. You just used to make yourself easier to reach. Now, you are selective. You choose clarity over approval. You choose alignment over applause. You choose steadiness over speed. You move slower now. But every step has intention. You are not chasing outcomes. You are building foundations. And that makes you powerful in a way that doesn't announce itself. People can no longer manipulate your sense of duty. They can no longer rely on your silence to avoid accountability. They can no longer take advantage of your patience, because patience without boundaries is no longer something you offer. You don't argue. You don't defend. You don't over-explain. You simply step back and let reality speak for itself. And reality has a way of making everything clear. This is why some people may feel unsettled around you now. Not because you are harsh, but because you are honest without being confrontational. Your calm becomes confronting to those who relied on confusion. And that is not your responsibility to manage. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to live in truth. That truth steadies you. It grounds you. It keeps you rooted in who you are, even when the world shifts around you. You no longer need validation to confirm your direction. You feel it internally, a quiet knowing. You trust your pace. You trust your judgment. You trust what feels clean and what feels off. And because of that, you become someone who cannot be easily shaken. Not because you are closed, but because you are centered. There is a quiet danger in this kind of clarity. The kind that doesn't fight, the kind that doesn't react, the kind that simply moves forward without dragging anything unnecessary along. You don't announce this evolution, you live it. And as you live it, the world adjusts around you. Some step away, some step closer with sincerity. And you allow both, because you are no longer here to convince anyone of your value. You know it, and knowing it changes how you stand, how you speak, how you choose. Let yourself rest in that confidence for a moment, because when you stop seeking recognition, what emerges instead is a clarity so steady that it reshapes your entire path forward. Stay here with me, Capricorn. Let this last stretch settle slowly, like the final minutes of a late-night broadcast, when the world is quiet enough to hear the truth without resistance. There is something important to understand about 2026. It does not come to take from you. It comes to return you to yourself. Nothing meaningful is being removed. What leaves now was already hollow. For years, you may have thought loss meant people, faces, names, history. But what truly dissolves in 2026 is illusion. The illusion that effort alone could create reciprocity. The illusion that loyalty would eventually be matched. The illusion that if you carried enough weight, others would finally rise to meet you. That story ends here. And endings like this are quiet. They do not shatter you. They clear you. You begin to see that confusion was never part of your nature. It was something you tolerated out of duty. The fog lifts not because life becomes easier, but because you stop negotiating with reality. Empty promises lose their power when you stop waiting for them to turn solid. Words without action can no longer anchor themselves to your hope, and relationships built on obligation simply cannot survive when you stop carrying them forward alone. This is not bitterness. This is honesty. You do not harden here. You refine. You learn that truth does not need to shout. Boundaries do not need justification. And strength does not need to be proven through endurance. What rises in their place is something far more stable. Inner authority. The kind that does not react. The kind that does not seek permission. The kind that does not explain itself to be valid. You begin to trust your own knowing again. The quiet voice that always sensed when something was off long before you allowed yourself to acknowledge it. That voice is clear now. And because it is clear, your world reorganizes around it. You find yourself surrounded not by many people, but by the right ones. Those who do not drain you. Those who do not require performance. Those who do not need you to be smaller or stronger or endlessly patient. They simply stand with you. There is dignity in that kind of connection, a calm recognition. You feel it in your body, the absence of tension, the absence of vigilance. You no longer brace yourself before entering a room. You no longer prepare for imbalance. You arrive as you are, and that is enough. 14 years of confusion did not weaken you. They shaped discernment. They carved wisdom into you slowly, through experience rather than theory. Now that wisdom has space to breathe. You are not losing people. You are losing projections. You are not losing connection. You are losing distortion. What remains is real, clear, grounded. You stand differently now, not because you are guarded, but because you are anchored. You no longer guess where you belong. You feel it. You no longer question your worth. You embody it, and you no longer wonder who is real. You see, that seeing is your power. It allows you to move forward without dragging the past behind you, without repeating old patterns, without confusing endurance with love. You step into the future lighter, not because you carry less responsibility, but because you carry only what is yours. There is freedom in that, a quiet, earned freedom. And as you stand here, at the edge of what is familiar and what is finally aligned, take a moment to recognize yourself. Not the version who survived, the version who understands. 14 years have closed their circle, not with loss, with clarity, You are no longer guessing. You are no longer waiting. You know. And knowing is where your real journey begins. All right, Capricorn, before we let the night close around this message, I want you to stay with me for just a few more breaths. Because if there is one thing this journey through 2026 reveals, it's this. Nothing was wasted. Not the years you questioned yourself. Not the relationships that taught you through wait and silence. Not the moments when clarity felt just out of reach. All of it was shaping the eyes you have now. And that is why this ending does not feel heavy. It feels clean. You didn't lose people. You didn't lose time. You lost the fog. And in its place, you gained something far more powerful than certainty. You gained trust in yourself. The kind of trust that doesn't need permission. The kind that doesn't rush. The kind that stands quietly and knows when to move. If this message found you tonight, and something inside you softened or settled or finally made sense, I want you to acknowledge that. Go to the comments and write one simple sentence. I trust what I see now. Not for me, for you. And if you're a Capricorn who's been walking this path of clarity, responsibility, and quiet strength for a long time, make sure you're subscribed, because this is not the end of the story. This is the moment the story starts to move differently. There are more messages coming, more alignment unfolding, more truth that doesn't demand effort, only presence. You're not walking this alone anymore. There is a community here that understands what it means to carry weight and still choose integrity. So, take this calm with you. Let it settle into your decisions. Let it guide who you allow close. And trust this. When clarity arrives, life doesn't get louder. It gets truer. We'll continue this journey together very soon.